Mr. President, my colleague from Oklahoma has given me a fine lead-in this evening to rise and tell really an amazing story of an Alaska dog musher named Lance Mackey, and the story of his dog teams who carried him to yet another record-breaking victory today in the toughest race on earth, and that's the Iditarod. The story of Lance Mackey is not only amazing because of his skill and his determination in the sport of dog mushing, but Lance Mackey has also overcome some very incredible personal challenges. He had a victory over cancer that preceded his victories in the sport of dog mushing. Lance is a lifelong Alaskan. He married his high school sweetheart. He's got 4 children. He was diagnosed with throat cancer after finishing in 36th place in the 2001 Iditarod sled dog race. So after that race, this man doesn't give up. He had extensive surgery and radiation treatment, and he attempted to complete the Iditarod the following year in 2002 after this surgery. But he did have to scratch. He had to drop out of that particular race, taking the time off of dog mushing to recover from his cancer and the surgeries that had intervened. He is now considered cancer-free. He went on to win the Yukon Quest, one of the 2 major sled dog races in Alaska. He did this in 2005 and in 2006. And then Lance Mackey went on to do what no one had done before and what most people considered absolutely impossible. In 2007 and 2008, he won both the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod, 2 incredibly grueling races with only a week and a half in between each race to rest before he moved to the next event. For the first time in the history of the races, Lance had won both races, and he did so 2 years in a row. And today, Lance Mackey won the Iditarod yet again. Now, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with either the Iditarod or the Yukon Quest, these races are the world's 2 longest sled dog races. Both races span over 1,000 miles of really tough mountains, rigid mountains, frozen tundra, dense forests. These are true tests of dedication and determination. Not only does the terrain, the rugged terrain, pose immense obstacles, but you've got the weather that factors in. It's starting to turn a little bit like spring around here, but back home, it's still winter. And these mushers face temperatures which frequently drop to 30 or 40 degrees below zero. And then you've got your wind that kicks up, wind gusting up to about 100 miles per hour, so you can only imagine what your wind chill factor is as you're racing those dogs in the weather and the elements. The annual Yukon Quest sled dog race is a 1,000-mile international trek, goes from Fairbanks, Alaska, over to Whitehorse in Canada. And Lance Mackey and his team of canine athletes have won this race 4 years in a row. Now, the race that Lance won for the 3rd consecutive year today is the 1,100-mile Iditarod sled dog race. This race starts in Willow, Alaska, and ends up in Nome, Alaska. And the race commemorates the 1925 diphtheria serum relay. They ran dog teams in a relay to pass along a vaccine for the diphtheria. They needed to get it from Anchorage, where it had come in by ship, and they needed to get it to Nome. At that point in time, we didn't have the ability for air transport to get into Nome. So how you move it and how you move it quickly, well, we resorted to a series of dog teams to move that serum north and to save the lives of those who were infected. Now, today, the Iditarod is no longer run as a relay, but it's a race of individual dog sled teams. And this this race, this 1,100-mile race, takes the mushers on some incredibly beautiful areas. The journey that they travel through the Alaskan wilderness is exceptionally beautiful, but as I mentioned, you not only have tough terrain, but you've got really brutal weather. This year has been particularly tough with the snow and the wind. It's caused for delays, it has caused real setbacks with the mushers and the teams as they've been trying to go through high snowpack. There have been some accidents, there have been some sleds that have been lost, and it has been very, very difficult. We had some near hurricane force winds that forced dog musher Lou Packer and his dogs to be airlifted to safety, and he and his team had to quit the race. And as he described the weather conditions, I'd say life-threatening, he says, Lou's comments were, "We were climbing over this mountain and we got hit by this wind that hit us like a hammer. The temperature dropped, started plummeting, and I lost the trail. And the wind started to build and build, and then the wind got bad. So I climbed in my sled, and I was pretty much in a survival situation at this point. I threw out all the gear out of my sled, climbed in, zipped up. It was probably 30, 35 below. I have no idea." These are the types of individuals that train all year long with their dogs to prepare for this incredible race, where it's not just the musher who we celebrate the success, but it's these incredible four-legged athletes that are absolutely astounding. Some of the other mushers that are out on the trail, pretty extraordinary folks, John Baker out of Nome, Sebastian Chanel, Aaron Burmeister, they were describing other conditions along the trail. Chanel said, he described it as brutal, but he said, "The wind was blowing so hard out of Shaktoolik that the dog team moved sideways." Well, you got about 15 or 16 dogs pulling a loaded sled and a musher, and you've got winds that are blowing you sideways. You know you're in some weather. And his comment was, "First we had snow and wind, now we have wind and wind." Well, earlier this afternoon, thousands gathered at the famous Burled Wood Arch on Front Street in Nome, Alaska to cheer on Lance Mackey as his dogs carried him to victory over his extremely talented and resilient competitors from all over the world. This is an international race, most absolutely. Lance and his team of canines completed the race a little less than 3 hours short of 10 days. So imagine yourself standing on the back of sled runners, going over mountain ranges, going through ice and snow, in temperatures of 30 below and wind howling at you. And this is fun, ladies and gentlemen. This is man and dog against Mother Nature. And boy, the best teams are sure winning. Alaska newspapers tell a story of Lance's fired-up dog team after taking his only 24-hour break during the race. He broke in a town called Takotna. And after the layover was completed, you got to rest for 24 hours mandatory, because sometimes your teams don't want to rest. They want to keep moving. Well, after this layover was completed, Lance's 16 dogs were barking and pulling at their tug lines like they were leaving the race's starting line. Lance says he had this amazing run. He was going to put the bale of straw out for the dogs to rest, and he had every intention of stopping. But then he sees that his dogs are just yelping and barking to get going, so he takes off. He says, "They're telling me what to do, so I dumped the straw, and it's been heaven ever since." And what you have here with an individual like a musher, like Lance Mackey, who cares so deeply for the health and the condition of these four-legged athletes, this is a guy who's shown a great mastery of working with and training the canine athletes for the sport of dog mushing. The Anchorage Daily News last year, when he won, stated that, quote, "A musher doesn't win 4 straight 1,000-mile Yukon quests and 2 straight Iditarods by making dogs run. He wins by making dogs want to run." And Lance describes working with his dogs this way. He says, the biggest challenge working with a large team of dogs is the individual personalities. Like a classroom full of kids, all with issues, wants, questions, some barking wildly to get my attention, and then there are some who just do what needs to be done and require only a nod or a smile. Every dog is different. Every need is different. That's what I love. The reward is seeing them all come together as a team working for a common goal. It's just cool, he says. Well, I had the opportunity last week when I was up in the state. I was at the ceremonial start for the Iditarod and get a chance to go around and talk with the mushers and see all their teams. And I had a chance to see Larry, his lead dog. My favorite is Lippy. I just kind of like the name, but Lippy's got great little eyebrows. My favorite picture is with Lippy. But these dogs are personalities unto themselves, and when they do come together as a team to do these incredible athletic feats, we must acknowledge and respect them. Lance Mackey continues to impress all of us with his remarkable achievements and record-setting performances. He's an inspiration to others who struggle with cancer. He named his dog kennel up north the Lance Mackey's Comeback Kennel, I think most appropriate. So it's my honor today to stand before the Senate to congratulate Lance Mackey and his team of amazing dogs. Lance is a world-class dog musher and a true Alaska hero, and I wish him and his team continued success and good health in the future.